Kick-Ass isn't a costume. It's who you really are.
We gotta make this right.
The anticipation's killing me.
Game on, cocksuckers!
Hey everyone, Aaron Burke here today to talk about Kick-Ass 2. I did not like this movie at all. I think it has, a series of really horrible problems that I want to talk about here. Especially as a fan of the comic book, I found it very disappointing. So I had 5 major issues with this film. The first one is that is really the character of Hit Girl and what this film does with her. Essentially, what they do with Hit Girl in the movie is they try to turn her into more of a high school character, right? So you have her in a setting where she's with other kids and trying to fit in for the first time. And it's like that in the comic book series too, in the Hit Girl series, but it's played up much truer to her character. You see her try to fit in, get frustrated, and take it out by literally hanging a girl off of a rooftop and saying, if you don't hang out with me, I'm gonna throw you off this roof, and it's fucking hilarious. And here, instead of the traditional Hit Girl route, they decide to actually play up her Hit Girl's emotions. She actually cares. She cares what these girls think of her. She's sad. She cries. She, really wants revenge, and she decides to do it by showing up and dressing up and dolling herself up and doing all these things that are just really anti-Hit Girl. And I think what makes the character of Hit Girl so wonderful is that she doesn't care. She doesn't give a shit. She does her own thing. She is a crime fighter first and foremost. That's what she cares about. And the fact that they try to turn her into like your cliched, like struggling high school film Mean Girls type, that just didn't do it for me. And I think it's kind of fundamentally opposed to Mark Millar's intentions for Hit Girl. The other thing is that they very much try to sexualize Hit Girl in this movie, and it's very strange, it's very weird. Again, they doll her up. They ever wear these like low-cut dresses. There's one scene in particular where she is watching a scene with a boy band on a TV and actually gets turned on. She gets like wet, and it's like supposed to be her like first like sexual feeling, and it's just very strange to see. First of all, I expect if this was a Hit Girl from the comics, she would have viewed that tape with this boy band and been like what the fuck is this shit? What are you showing me, you dumb bitches? Something like that. That's what I expected. Instead, they show us her actually getting into it, and not only is it against her character, but it's just strange to see. I mean, Chloe Grace Moretz is 16, and I understand that there are viewers that age who are into that, but there's a lot more millions of people in the world watching this movie who are going to be weirded out by it. And I get the feeling that Jeff Wadlow, whoever made this decision, thought to himself, well, people think Hit Girl's hot. Adolescent boys think she's hot. And, okay, granted, Hit Girl, it's a very cool concept, right? Like, she's this, awesome girl who has these ninja skills, can kill people left and right, is good with a sword, she's pretty, okay, there's a certain section of people, the teen boy audience who could get into this idea. But taking an idea that, okay, some people find Hit Girl hot, and then presenting it on a movie screening and dialing it up and turning her into practically a sex object for everyone to see is just not a good idea. It goes against the character, and it goes against any sort of reasonable idea of her age and taking into account the various audience members watching this. And I think it was completely the wrong decision. So that's one major problem, the Hit Girl stuff. My second problem with the movie is its inappropriate use of comedy, and some of this again does relate to Hit Girl, particularly the scene where she gets revenge on the girls for ditching her in the woods, and she chooses to do this by using something called a six stick and causing them all to vomit. And it's played for laughs, but honestly it's just disgusting and silly, right? I don't need to see Hit Girl causing people to vomit. That's not funny, and it's very juvenile. and it just did, with the scene where she hangs a girl off the roof in the comic was perfectly fine. I don't know why they didn't just do that here. So, that's one example. Another thing is you have a lot of scenes with kind of with Red Mist, or Motherfucker as he is newly titled, and his band of villains going around the city doing damage and murdering people. And it's kind of played for laughs, but it really shouldn't be, because there's a lot of dark content there. Particularly in the scene where he actually goes and him and his band of followers rape the character of Night Bitch. It's in the comic it was Katie Dukes, but here it's Night Bitch. But there's a rape scene, and they don't show it obviously, but it's hinted at. And rather than dealing with the sort of emotional content of it, it's played for laughs. Right? You have this whole thing where Motherfucker is like trying to get it up and can't, so he starts jerking himself off. And you're supposed to laugh at it, but it's not funny at all. It's really disturbing because they do rape her. I'm assuming they do, that it's just not appropriate. And one of the great things about the comic is that it's willing to deal with darker material. It's willing to show these things like a rape, like murder, and deal with the consequences, and you very much feel it, and you're appalled by it, as you're supposed to be appalled by it. And here, instead of going that route, they play up the comedy. They try to dial down the darkness, but still keeping the content, and it was counterproductive, and it makes it actually look even worse. It makes it look like they're willing to show something as terrible as a rape without giving it its full emotional credit, and that's no good. And that brings me to my third point, the third thing wrong with this movie, which is the theme of the comic book is completely lost. The theme of the comic book is essentially that you can't be a superhero without consequences. You can't go around in the night saving people wearing a costume without losses, without dealing with the reality of the consequences of that decision. And in the movie, there's none of that. There's no consequences for anything. All the thematic integrity is lost. Instead, you just cut from scene to scene of senseless violence, playing up humor, playing up different aspects, but never actually getting to the core of what Kick-Ass 2 is about. And instead, you just have this sort of series of, disconnected scenes that seem presented with no real purpose, and that's very much how the material in the movie version is presented. And so this brings me to my fourth problem with the movie, which is the pacing of the movie and the editing is completely off. It's very sloppily put together, especially the second half of the movie, when we get around to all the dark stuff, the deaths, starting with Colonel Sergeant Stripe's death. That scene is actually pretty well done, pretty accurately presented from the comic book. But here, the rest of the scenes just sort of play at like breakneck speed. Like you have the scene where Dave's father, or Kick-Ass's father, is arrested, and it cuts from that to like his father's death, to Kick-Ass's reaction. He screams like no, and then in the blink of the eye you cut to the funeral, and the funeral itself lasts 30 seconds, and then you cut to the rocket getting shot at everyone, and Hit Girl jumping on the truck and stabbing people, and it happens so quickly there's no time to digest anything. There's no time to embrace the emotional content. In the comic, when Kick-Ass's father dies, it's a very emotional scene. I was very invested. It's very heartbreaking, and you deal with the theme, the consequences of being a superhero, and the way it's presented, there's no consequences, there's no emotional investment. You're not able to give two shits. I wanted to, but you can't, because the movie just doesn't give you the time. It just keeps cutting to get to, it's like, okay, let's get to the next scene, who cares, next scene, and it's a very shameful way to treat such great source material. And the other thing about the editing is that it just kind of, I think it's kind of used as an excuse to disguise badly choreographed action scenes. One of the great things about the original Kick-Ass is that Matthew Vaughn had this real edge to his directing. Everything was well choreographed, stylized, the action was awesome. You have like Hit Girl like doing these awesome moves with like knives and swords, and like here, you know, the weapons are there, the moves are there, but you don't see them. There's all these like close-ups and quick cuts and nothing very inventive going on. It's like they're using the Bourne Identity shaky cam to disguise the action, but unlike in those movies, there's no purpose. It's not to present a style, it's to cover a lack of ingenuity, a lack of ability on, I think, Jeff Wadlow's part, and that's a real shame. So yeah, the sloppy pacing ending, another major problem. Finally, my fifth problem with this movie is the ending and the way it completely deviates from the comic book in inappropriate fashion. And you know, deviating from a comic isn't always the worst thing in a movie adaptation. The first movie did it plenty. It deviated from Kick-Ass's relationship with Katie. In the comic, there is no relationship. It's just a crush. In the movie, they do get together. Or, you know, Big Daddy's origin story has changed. You know, fine, whatever. The theme of the comic is still there. It's just presented with a unique vision. Here, there is, unique vision, and that's particularly evident. It's evident everywhere, but in the ending, they try to sort of slap on this sort of narrative conclusion where you have Kick-Ass kind of saying, oh, and so I learned that you can be a hero without putting on a costume. Like, the most like cliche superhero conclusion you can imagine, and it's completely out of left field. It has nothing to do with the movie. As cliched as you could get, it also seems like they're trying to like end the movie series with Kick-Ass 2, which I don't know why they do. I mean, this movie wasn't very good, but I think a third film directed by Matthew Vaughn or someone more competent than Wadlow could be fine, and it seems like they're wrapping up the story without any reason to do so, and the movie doesn't feel like it's a final picture, but they just sort of slap this ending on, trying to wrap up like 2 movies worth of material in like a 30-second narration, and it just doesn't work at all. And so yeah, I don't know why they did that. It's completely out of left field, does not ring true. Another thing about the ending is that they actually try to like hint at a romance between Kick-Ass and Hit Girl, right? Like she kisses him, and the idea behind the kiss is okay. She is experiencing her first kiss. Earlier in the movie, the girls were teasing her about never having kissed a boy, so at the end she kisses Kick-Ass, and she's like, you're my first kiss, and it's like, okay, you know, it's cute, fine, whatever. But it really annoys me as a fan of the comic series, because one of the great things about the Kick-Ass Hit Girl relationship in the comic is there is no relationship. It's very much a boy and a girl who can be sidekicks without any romantic tension, and it's a unique thing, and it's really great because of how unique it is, and it kind of shows how you can have a male-female protagonist dynamic without it being romantic. And I think it's a novel concept, and it's great. And the fact that the movie instead went the cliched Hollywood route and had to get the main 2 characters together is, again, very stupid. It just shows Jeff Wadlow in general seems to have this very cliched, non-original mindset, and it particularly doesn't work here because of the age gap between Hit Girl and Kick-Ass. You know, again, she's 16, he's like 20, and it's just, no, you know, like, that doesn't work. No, you can't, no, you know, you can't do that. It's just awkward, and you know, I don't really know why they tried to do it. It's completely unoriginal. It doesn't make sense, and it deviates from where these characters should be from the characters from the comics, and it's a shame. So those are my 5 problems with Kick-Ass. Honestly, it's a little more than 5, but you know, boiling them down into 5 basic categories. So. You know, the movie isn't all bad. There are a couple things I like. I think there are a few sequences early on that are good. Some of the Hit Girl stuff is a little funny. And I do like Colonel Stars and Stripes as a character. I think Jim Carrey does a fantastic job, very understated for him. And his death scene is the only emotional scene that's handled well in the movie. And, I like Hit Girl, despite the stuff that Wadlow does with her. Chloe Grace Moretz is a very good actress and brings to Hit Girl the kind of awesome, vivacious behavior that you want to see. And she's still great. It's a shame that she was written not so great material this time around, but she still managed to, her performance managed to eclipse the material, so that's good. But yeah, besides a couple performances and some okay scenes, not much I liked here. A lot of problems with it, and overall very disappointing, but hopefully Kick-Ass 3 will redeem it. So we'll see where the next movie goes, and I'll see you at my next movie review. Thanks for watching, and be sure to let me know what you think in the comments. Take care.